Hello and welcome. We told you yesterday about Donald Trump's sweeping travel ban. Today we are tracking a visa firestorm that erupted in retaliation. We'll tell you about a country that has dared to respond. The Central African nation of Chad has suspended visas for US citizens. Chad's President Mahamat Idriss Déby made the move public. In a sharp Facebook post, he said Chad would no longer issue visas to Americans. It wasn't out of anger, but the country's president said it was about pride. Trump's travel ban mostly targets African countries. 7 of the 12 counties on his list are from Africa, and the ban takes effect from Monday. Now, several other countries were also placed under heightened travel restrictions. Trump says that the countries were banned because they have what he thinks is deficient screening systems, and they refuse to take back their citizens who overstay visas in the United States of America. The White House says it is to protect national security. Critics are calling it a copy-paste of the travel ban, which he tried to enforce during his first term. But Chad's president isn't sitting back. If the US can ban his country, Chad can also ban Americans. In his statement, he wrote, Chad may not have planes to offer nor billions of dollars, but it has dignity and pride. And Chad is not alone in this fight. Republic of the Congo also criticized the ban, calling it a quote-unquote mistake. Their government believed that they have been wrongly linked to an armed incident in the US. Meanwhile, Sierra Leone is not on the complete ban list, but faces restrictions. Even so, its government struck a diplomatic tone, saying they'll work with the US authorities to address concerns. Earlier, Somalia also pledged to work with the US to address security issues. Now, what is clear is Trump's order singles out Africa, and there is a deep sense of unfairness that is being felt. The African Union said in a statement the ban would harm everything: people-to-people ties, educational exchange, commercial engagement, and diplomatic relations that took years to form. So Africa is pushing back. Chad's move to block US visas is the first retaliation, but will it be the last? Now, for more on this, we have with us on the show Beverly Ochieng, a senior analyst at Control Risks, joining us live from Dakar, Senegal. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you for having me, Alison.
Beverly, what does Chad's suspension of visas to US citizens signal about its broader diplomatic stance, especially in light of President Déby's emphasis on dignity and pride?
I mean, one of the things that it demonstrates is that Chad will continue to align its geopolitical priorities and diplomatic engagements in line with the quest to be accorded respect as a sovereign state. And Chad is willing to be just as transactional as the US has been in its increasing geopolitical engagements. Furthermore, unlike the African Union, which called for dialogue, Chad's measures are seen to be decisive, the same as those of the US. It's not the first time this has happened to Chad. It was part of a visa ban in 2017 under the first Trump administration. But under Mahamat Déby, Chad has become more explicit about spelling out respect for sovereignty, challenging security and diplomatic partners that the country or the government perceives to be threatening its own sovereign ambitions.
Yes. And how might Chad's response affect its bilateral relations with the US, especially in areas like military cooperation, counterterrorism, and development aid?
I mean, it will further strain relations with the US, but as things stand, US's direct military support in Chad reduced. Just before the presidential election in May last year, Chadian authorities asked American special forces to leave the country, and they haven't changed their stance since, despite there being talks between the US and Chad for the US troops to return. But Chad has also been seeking other partnerships in counterinsurgency. They have Hungarian forces who arrived in the country. They have received millions of dollars in budgetary and humanitarian aid support from the United Arab Emirates. Turkey also intends to take over a former French base in Abeche. So Chad is proactively seeking alternative partners for development, for military, and for aid as a way of sort of waning off the dependency or the need to necessarily be supported by the US or other Western partners.
Yes, and Beverly, given the contrasting responses from the Republic of Congo and Somalia, how do these divergent positions reflect the internal political or strategic priorities of African nations when faced with US policy decisions?
I suppose one of the expectations, Alison, is that African countries, especially with the African Union, should have a more consolidated response to uncertain geopolitical trends. But we do see that those divergent decisions also demonstrate that these countries have their own relationships with the US and with other partners. So we've seen, for instance, South Sudan almost being backed into a corner to accept irregular migrants, irrespective of their citizenship in Africa. We've seen DRC leveraging its minerals for security, and it does demonstrate that some countries may want to protect their relationship with the US because they have assets, they have personnel, they have interests in the US, while other countries like Chad, for instance, are more open to having much more partnerships and defending their interests in a similar way as the West is now seen to be increasingly defending its own interests.
Yes. Beverly, it's always great to have you on the show. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
Firstpost now available in 9 languages on YouTube. English,
At $36 trillion.
French,
Le FMI, comme
German,
Geschäftsführenden Direktor,
Hindi,
$30 trillion ka kaljo.
Indonesian,
Pemerintah tanpa pemeriksaan.
Italian,
Sekali radikali.
Japanese,
$4 trilhões.
Portuguese,
Por causa do próprio balanço patrimonial.
Spanish.
Beautiful bill.
Go to Settings, click on Audio Track and select a language of your choice. Be the first to know what's happening around you in your first language. Firstpost.